Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. A British teenager who says she has no regrets about running away to Syria to join the Islamic State group in 2015 has been told she could face prosecution if she tries to come home. 19-year-old Shamima Begum says she's pregnant and wants to return for her baby. She was one of 3 schoolgirls who disappeared from East London when she was 15. She's now living in a Syrian refugee camp. The father of one of the other girls who ran away broke down in tears when he heard his daughter may still be alive and appealed to the British government to bring Amira Abbasi home. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford reports.
Still streaming across the desert from the last speck of territory held by the Islamic State group, the women and children of IS, some of whom had been willing participants in the dying caliphate and had travelled from across the world to join it. Many are heading for this camp in northern Syria, where yesterday Shamima Begum, one of the Bethnal Green girls, reappeared after almost 4 years. She had travelled to Syria from London with 2 school friends, one of whom is dead. She was married at 15, had and lost 2 children, saw oppression and brutality, but says going to join IS was the right decision.
I don't regret it. But when I came and I saw that there was like underground oppression and all this happening, it came as a shock to me, like this is actually happening.
Do you think this is the end of the caliphate?
Yeah, I really do. I don't have high hopes.
She left the UK for Syria in 2015, arriving in the IS stronghold Raqqa soon afterwards. She married a 27-year-old Dutch convert. But 2 years later, she left Raqqa for Mayadin as Kurdish forces advanced. She had a daughter. The next year, she had a son who died in November, after which she moved again to Baghouz. Last month, her daughter also died. Grief-stricken and pregnant again, she fled Baghouz for a refugee camp. Her husband surrendered.
Did you ever see executions?
No, but I saw a beheaded head in the bin.
In the bins?
Yeah, it's true in the bin.
What was that like when you first saw that? These are the heads of captives?
Yeah, didn't faze me at all.
She told The Times her school friend Amira Abbasi was also still alive 2 weeks ago. Amira Abbasi's father, who thought until today that she might be dead, now wants the British government to try to bring the girls home. He says they were young teenagers who shouldn't be punished for their mistakes, and he would go and get her himself if he could.
Never stay 1 minute here if I can't go fly there to see her.
And when you see her, what would you say to her?
I don't know. Really don't know.
Today, the Home Office said that anyone who's been involved in the conflict in Syria can expect to be investigated by the police on their return, to check if they've committed any criminal offence and to ensure that they don't pose a risk to national security.
If you have been out there against the advice of the Foreign Office to go and engaged in support or activities of terrorism, you should be prepared to be, if you come back, prepared to be questioned, investigated and potentially prosecuted for committing terrorist offences.
Shiraz Maher, who's been studying IS since 2014, says even teenage girls were helping the murderous caliphate.
Just by virtue of being there, they were building a kind of critical mass on the ground. They were having these children who were believed to be and called the so-called cubs of the caliphate, that they would go on to be future fighters.
From my point of view, she was a young child when she was groomed by ISIS and seduced by some twisted form of empowerment for Muslims. But it's not as simple as, a brainwashed jihadi bride. So that needs to be taken into consideration.
And as IS fights its last battle, the arguments about what to do with its supporters are going to intensify over the next few months. Daniel Sanford, BBC News.
Our home editor Mark Easton is here. She was a child when she left London. Many will still find it very difficult to have any sympathy for her now wanting to return.
Well, as you say, in her own words, she was a silly little schoolgirl when she left in 2015. Shamima Begum now appears unsentimental, uncompromising and unrepentant as an adult, hardened. I think listening to that report, hardened, it would seem, by atrocity, brutality, personal tragedy too. I suspect I'm not alone in detecting a flicker of radical Islam in her testimony as well. So how should the UK government treat this British citizen? As a traumatised abuse victim, groomed and exploited, a pregnant mother in desperate need of help? Or as a potential terrorist threat, a woman who made her choice and to whom the British state owes nothing? Her story, of course, straddles the line between childhood and adulthood, between vulnerability and possible culpability. Exactly what she did and what was done to her under the Islamic State flag, we may never know. But were she to arrive at the UK border asking to enter, mother and, of course, baby would be subject to the British legal system and authorities. Social services, I think, would look to protect the welfare of the child. It seems more than likely it would be taken into care. And the police and courts, of course, would consider the fate of the parent. Shamima Begum would be questioned, investigated, and depending on the evidence available, yes, she could be prosecuted under terror legislation, or actually a plan could be put to try and rehabilitate her.
Mark Easton, thank you.